In light of recent events, I decided to deviate from the plan I originally had in terms of posting things for presidential birthdays. Needless to say, in light of current events, there was no way that I could find the emotional strength or pull myself away from the news enough to continue producing what I had in mind, even though I had started a video that I intended to post 2 days ago, and then of course there'd be one that I'd be posting now. I would simply like to establish this message, because of all the things that certainly I was going to say in either video, these are the two most important things that resonate to certainly provide any sort of strength or clarity or direction in a time of chaos and confusion and loss, even of words and of lives. Millard Fillmore, the 13th President of the United States, was born on January 7th during the transition between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. That time was significant because John Adams might not have attended Jefferson's inauguration, rightly or wrongly, but that was the first peaceful transfer of power in our history as a republic. And it signaled at least that even in spite of the animosity of the parties of the time, which if you're a student of that period, and I will certainly help illustrate that later on, you would know that it is very ugly and very despicable. Still, that moment, of course, we passed through. We passed the test as a country, as a people, as human beings. When Millard Fillmore himself rose to become vice president, the country was coming apart at the seams. In the 1850s, since he was elected vice president in 1848, it was the aftermath of the Mexican-American War, and the acquisition of new territories was splitting the country asunder, because California and the imbalance between slave and free states was threatening to undo the tenuous compromise that they had, of course, established 30 years earlier with the Missouri Compromise. Zachary Taylor, the president, Millard Fillmore as vice president, point-blankly said as a slave owner that while he was going to make some accommodations, he did not intend to sign the Compromise of 1850 that was being drafted in Congress. Millard Fillmore made plain that he disagreed. Through whatever circumstances or reason you want to give to it, when Taylor died and Fillmore became president, he signed that, and he considered it his greatest and most responsible act for trying to preserve the Union. Of course, I'm trying to always reserve passing too much historical judgment, and injecting bias where there should be objectivity. But certainly that was an act that, even if only delayed the inevitable, was certainly a service in our country. It doesn't, unfortunately, excuse the later acts that he did that I will certainly still highlight in future videos. But the other president, of course, I should recognize, and that I have to certainly change my commentary of, in light of recent events, would be the president who was born today, namely Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was born on January 9th, 1913, under Woodrow Wilson, who of course I covered in my inaugural video. And I don't need to, educate, especially the people I already know subscribe to this channel, what his presidency did to our country. How much that's still a living memory and a fresh wound for some, with good reason. And yet, by definition, I can't sit there and cover anything relating to Watergate or the resulting aftermath and ripple effects without factoring in now the present, and seeing it in a larger historical context that's still evolving and changing as we speak, as we live through this historic time, regrettably. But Richard Nixon still had the courtesy and the dignity and recognized the duty to resign. He never fully admitted what he did wrong. We'll probably never know the full extent of what he did, and yet he still recognized that the moment called for that. And there's a speech he never gave. I recommend you read it. I'll probably put it in the description, where he was going to fight on. I've never personally read it, but I'm now going to read it. And if you at least listen to some of the remarks he gave to his staff, it was at least to show there was a human element to that man. And he still actually did have some heart and some character. And if President Trump really loves this country, if he really is someone who wants to make this country and keep her greatness intact in light of what's going on, then the only logical and summative act that he should do is to resign. If impeachment is illogical and logistically impossible, if invoking the 25th Amendment, if this doesn't meet the criteria, that's for others to decide, because I don't have the, certainly the pedigree to decide that, then Trump should resign. He should at least follow in Richard Nixon's footsteps in that regard, because at least it would at least erase some of this dishonor and the disgrace of what's been going on this past week. So thank you all.
We think that when we lose an election, we think that when we suffer a defeat, that all is ended. We think, as T.R. said, that the light had left his life forever. Not true. It's only a beginning, always. The young must know it. The old must know it. It must always sustain us, because the greatness comes not when things go always good for you, but the greatness comes, and you're really tested, when you take some knocks, some disappointments, when sadness comes. Because only if you've been in the deepest valley can you ever know how magnificent it is to be on the highest mountain. And so I say to you on this occasion, we leave proud of the people who have stood by us and worked for us and served this country. We want you to be proud of what you've done. We want you to continue to serve in government if that is your wish. Always give your best. Never get discouraged. Never be petty. Always remember, others may hate you, but those who hate you don't win unless you hate them. And then you destroy yourself.